Hello, my name is Claire Bolton, and I'm the Gallery Manager at the Aurora Cultural Center. On behalf of the staff and Board of Directors, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Art Bytes, our online series that gives you an insider look into the creative process of participating artists. Beyond the Walls, our virtual art exhibition and sale features the artwork of the Uxbridge Artist Collective. Today, our special guest is Gayle Temple, glass artist. Gayle creates stunning sculptural and functional pieces with an emphasis on texture and shape using different techniques. She's completely self-taught, starting with tumbled glass, then colored and stained glass, and is now experimenting with kiln-fired glass. The changing seasons influence what Gayle creates. Some pieces are whimsical and bursting with shape and color, while others are calm, clear, and serene. As Gayle continues to learn, she continues to evolve and experiment and take risks with glass. Gayle Temple's home-based studio is filled with wonderful pieces of all shapes and sizes, and it's located in beautiful Claremont, Ontario. Please join me for a tour of Gayle's studio and stay for a conversation with the artist afterwards. Thank you, and stay safe.
Welcome to my studio. I'm Gayle. So come on in and take a quick look around. It's tiny. This is an old home that I converted into an open work area. So it's a lot of fun. I spend a lot of time up here. I work primarily in glass. I'm starting to dabble with a bit of wire and so on, incorporating that into glass as well. But that's something I love to work with. And it's amazing how you can take a solid object and put it in a kiln in a hot temperature, and it completely changes into something totally different. I started with stained glass to see if I really liked it, and that was about 2010, about 10 years ago. Went into tumbling glass remnants, saving them from the landfill, and making lamps, lights, still do actually, but now moving more into creating shapes on my own and something completely from scratch, which is kiln-fired glass. This piece I made flat initially, and I knew that I wanted to create some texture and movement and shape. I don't usually know exactly what I'm doing as I go, but anyway, this piece was a flat piece laid down on top of this bowl, sphere, half sphere underneath this fiber blanket. And the fiber blanket is what gives it the texture and the movement when you take it off and let it cool. I'm inspired by beauty. It doesn't have to be beauty in nature. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It doesn't have to be, oh, look at someone else's glasswork, that's really great, that inspires me. It has to be a feeling that I get.
Welcome, Gayle. I really enjoyed your video, and I could hear the joy in your voice. Can you tell us what got you started working in glass? What was your inspiration?
Well, I wanted a hobby, and I started off with stained glass, which is a really terrific medium to work in. But I think like artists, you evolve over time. Many artists do, and you want to expand upon your work base. So that's when I ventured off into using warm glass or using a kiln to heat the glass up and fusing it together. Inspiration for me comes from so many different areas, but when I got more and more familiar with the glass, I kept with it because I just thought that there's so much you can do with it. So I'm still learning. I'll probably always be learning, but inspiration comes from me most of the time internally, and my surroundings, my friends, what I see in nature.
Why did you switch from stained glass to fused glass?
It was really part of an evolution for me. Stained glass is extremely, I can't find the word for it. Fused glass, you never know exactly what the result is going to be when you open up the kiln. Whereas stained glass, it's very predictable, if that makes sense. And again, because fused glass, heating glass can be very technically challenging. So it takes an awful lot of experience and practice to learn. And I've found that sometimes the best pieces come out of something you've overfired or underfired, or, you know, it's just, it's always a surprise.
Well, can you give us a little inside peek into how you would start the process? I know you're a self-taught artist, and I think it'd be interesting for people to know just how you begin.
You know, I often don't have a solid concrete idea in my head, but then I'll get an inspiration from within or from around me, right? I'm just going to move over here and grab this for you. What I'm doing now, I'm working on a piece, or I should be standing. What I'm doing now is I'm working on a piece from my water series. And this is just a strip of glass, about 2.5 inches long. And I cut this from a much larger sheet in my little tight space on the floor. And then I will wind up with a number of pieces like this that I shape and curve how I want them to be, and lay them out on my kiln floor the way I want them. And this is the end result, or one of the end results that I do in the kiln. I'm working on doing a sister one for this that will be attached to the back, so it will be double-sided.
Mm-hmm. What are the challenges that you have of adding different materials? I noticed you were adding wire to a piece. And
yeah, that's tricky. That I'm always learning with that, because wire and glass do not have the same expansion and contraction properties. And that's the whole premise of mixing things together. You can't even mix different glasses together if they all have to have the same COE, or coefficient of expansion. If not, they'll explode or break or get stress fractures everywhere. That the key I've learned is slow, slow, slow in the kiln. I mean, this piece I had in the kiln with another larger piece, and it was in the kiln for over 40 hours. So it's a long time, right? But you want to ensure that it's properly annealed, that it's doesn't have a stress fracture, and that it's going to stay that way for a long, long time.
what connection do you hope people make to your art?
Oh, well, I hope they have an emotional love of it. That's always great. It's interesting. Sometimes a piece I've done will trigger a memory in someone. And I've had a number of people come up and talk to me about that. They'll just see some imagery in it that's like, oh, I remember seeing doves or whatever flying at my cottage. And I have a piece that has an imagery of birds flying across the sun. And they're like, oh, you know, that's such a nice feeling. And it's just in some way, somehow, if people can connect on whatever level it is, that makes it all worthwhile for me.
And I noticed you talked about the magic of glass and its interaction with light. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about that statement? About the magic?
Oh, it's fascinating. The sun moves around my house and around everybody's home, you know, in the morning, east, and it crosses all the way over to the west. And depending on where it is, the light shining through the window can catch glass pieces very, very differently, and can bring out certain colors much more than others, or iridescent glass, for example, will completely disappear in sunlight. You won't get any of those sparkly hues. If you put it on a wall with indirect lighting, it all comes alive, right? So it's like there's something within glass somehow that the sun and the glass speak together. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Beautiful. There's one piece that you did, Fly Me to the Moon. Can
Right.
you
Yeah.
tell us the inspiration behind that piece?
Oh man, that was, first of all, that was my biggest learning curve ever. I have never combined, I've done wire and glass before. The tree is wire and it's embedded in glass, but then I've never worked with wood or with metal below. It's on a wood base and a metal stand, right? So I was so focused on the creation of the process that I was completely overlooking the inspiration, and it just kind of evolved as I went. And I was coming to the end of it, and I'm just, and like I was working another piece and looking at it, and Frank Sinatra came on the radio and sang Fly Me to the Moon. And for me, the imagery, that was the perfect name for that piece, because it's uplifting, it's got color to brighten your day, it's got imagery to show that you're moving forward and upward, yet it's still grounded. So yeah, that it all kind of came together.
It sounds like magic to me,
Yeah,
actually. I just love your enthusiasm for what you're doing and your love for what you do, and your pieces are so joyful. So thank you very much for dropping by for an art bite. And where could people uh, find out more about your work?
Well, you can find out about me through the Aurora Cultural Center, obviously. And I do the Uxbridge Studio Tour, be part of the Uxbridge Artist Collective. So you can certainly go onto their website, and there is a link to my website as well with contact information.
Thank you very much, Gayle. Stay safe. See you soon.
Thank you, Claire.